The notification lit up my phone screen with a soft chime, a sound usually associated with the mundane rhythm of our lives. A bill reminder, a news alert. But this was different. A voice note from Naomi. My wife rarely sent voice notes. She was a woman of concise, efficient texts, of emails with clear subject lines. Her world, a gleaming skyscraper downtown where she was a senior vice president, ran on precision, not meandering audio clips. I was in my workshop in the back of our small house, the air thick with the scent of cedar and sawdust. My hands, calloused and stained, were carefully sanding the curve of a rocking chair leg. This was my world, quiet, tangible, a universe away from hers. I wiped my hands on my jeans, a faint trail of dust streaking the denim, and tapped the play button. I expected to hear her ask me to pick up milk, or to remind me that our daughter, Amara, had ballet on Thursday. Instead, another woman's voice filled the quiet space of my workshop. "Hey girl, you there?" It was Chloe, her best friend since college. My brow furrowed. A misdirected message. It happened. I was about to stop it, to text Naomi and let her know she'd sent it to the wrong person, when my wife's voice came through and the sound of it made me freeze. It wasn't the confident, polished tone she used for conference calls. It wasn't the gentle, sometimes tired voice she used with me and Amara. This was a voice I hadn't heard in years. It was fragile, frayed at the edges, and trembling with an exhaustion that went deeper than a long workday. "Chloe," she began, her voice a near whisper, laced with a sound that was perilously close to a sob. "I'm sitting in my car in the parking garage and I can't make myself drive home." A pause. I could hear the muffled hum of the garage's ventilation system. Mr. Sterling? He did it again, in front of the entire board. He presented my project, my data, as his own. Smiled right at me while he did it. Her breath hitched, and I just sat there. I smiled back. I am this powerful black woman, this SVP in a glass tower, and I just let it happen. For the promotion, for the image. The rocking chair leg felt heavy and foreign in my hand. "And that's not even the worst part," she continued, her voice cracking completely. "The worst part is, I'll go home, and Malik will ask me how my day was. And I'll say fine, and he'll look at me with those kind, patient eyes. And he won't see. He can't see. He looks at me, and he sees the woman who pays the mortgage, the one who buys the organic groceries. He doesn't see that I'm disappearing. I'm so tired, Chloe. I miss the girl who used to paint. I miss the woman who wasn't afraid to fight." I look at him, and Amara, and I feel like I'm a ghost in my own home. A well-dressed, successful ghost. The audio clip ended. 40 seconds of raw, unfiltered truth. Silence descended on the workshop, heavier and more profound than before. The scent of cedar was suddenly cloying. The silence wasn't empty. It was filled with the echo of her words. A ghost in my own home. The phrase hammered against my ribs. I had thought we were okay. Stretched thin, yes. 2 ships passing in the night sometimes, for sure. But I had believed the foundation was solid. I sank onto the wooden stool, the phone still in my hand. Those 40 seconds had just taken a sledgehammer to that foundation, and I had no idea if the pieces could ever be put back together. My life, our life, had just been turned upside down. My name is Malik. I build things with my hands. It's what I've always done. My father was a mechanic, and he taught me the dignity of fixing what is broken. For me, it was always wood. I loved the honesty of it. You couldn't lie to a piece of oak. You couldn't charm a plank of maple. It demanded patience, respect, and a quiet understanding. My workshop is my sanctuary. It's a small, converted garage behind the modest brick house Naomi's salary afforded us in a quiet, historically black neighborhood in Charlotte. The walls are lined with tools, each one with its own history. The floor is a permanent patchwork of sawdust. This is where I felt most myself. I had a business once, a small one, called Heirloom Hands. I made custom furniture, rocking chairs for new mothers, dining tables for growing families. It was my passion, my art. But when Naomi's career began its meteoric rise, something had to give. The late nights, the travel, the sheer mental bandwidth her job required. And then Amara came along. We made a choice, or rather, I made a choice. I shuttered the business to take a steady, stable job as a maintenance supervisor for the city school district. Predictable hours, good benefits. It allowed me to be the one to do school pickups, to handle doctor's appointments, to be the constant, steady presence in Amara's life. I never regretted it, not for a second. Seeing my daughter's face light up when I met her at the school gate was a currency more valuable than any handcrafted armoire. Amara was 7. She was a whirlwind of beautiful coils that bounced when she ran, bright, perceptive eyes, and a spirit that was pure, unfiltered light. Her skin, a warm brown, seemed to soak up the sun. She was my heart, walking around outside my body. She had my quiet nature, but Naomi's sharp intelligence. She would sit in the workshop for hours, drawing at a small table I'd built for her crayons scratching against the paper, as she narrated complex stories about butterfly queens and astronaut princesses. She was the glue, the bright, shining center of our universe. But the universe had felt misaligned for a while. The distance between my world of wood shavings and Naomi's world of quarterly reports had grown from a crack to a chasm. She would come home late, her deep brown skin looking pale under the strain of fluorescent office lights. Her natural hair, which she wore in an elegant updo that must have taken ages in the morning, would have a single, telling strand out of place. She would shed her tailored suit like a suit of armor, collapsing onto the sofa, her phone still glowing in her hand. We would talk, but the conversations were logistical updates, parent-teacher conferences, leaky faucets, the architecture of a shared life but with the soul stripped out. I missed her laugh, the full-throated sound that used to fill our tiny first apartment. I missed the way she'd lean her head on my shoulder while we watched a movie, her body fully relaxed against mine. I saw the exhaustion, but I respected her privacy, her strength. I thought my role was to keep the home fires burning, to be the calm harbor she could return to. I never imagined that my calm harbor felt like an empty house to her. He won't see. He can't see. Her words were a brand on my heart. I hadn't seen because I hadn't truly looked. Naomi's world was a place I only visited in pictures and stories. Her office was on the 47th floor of a downtown tower that scraped the sky. A glass box of ambition. I'd been there once for a holiday party. It felt sterile, cold. The air smelled of expensive perfume and quiet, ruthless competition. The people were all polished surfaces, their smiles never quite reaching their eyes. Naomi navigated that world with a grace and intelligence that left me in awe. She was the only black woman on the executive team, a fact she carried with both immense pride and crushing weight. She had fought for everything she had. Her parents were professors, brilliant but emotionally distant, who had measured love in report cards and accolades. Naomi had learned early that her worth was tied to her performance. She'd graduated from Howard at the top of her class, gotten her MBA at Wharton, and climbed the corporate ladder with a determination that was both inspiring and, I now realized, deeply lonely. She had never been loved without conditions. She had never been allowed to simply be. Her success was our family's security. It paid for the house, for Amara's ballet lessons, for the future we were building. I knew she carried that burden. I saw it in the tension in her shoulders, in the way she'd rub her temples when she thought no one was looking. But I had misinterpreted her strength as impenetrable armor. I thought she didn't need me to see the cracks. The voice note told me she was desperate for someone to see them. She was drowning, and I had been standing on the shore, admiring her swimming stroke. The drive to her office was a blur. I left a note for our neighbor, asking her to get Amara from school. I didn't call Naomi. I didn't text. What could I say? I heard you. I see you. It felt too simple, too hollow for the depth of pain in her voice. I needed to do something, to show her. Love, for me, was an action. It was a repaired step, a freshly oiled hinge, a warm meal. It was showing up. I found her car on the third level of the underground garage, tucked into a corner. The engine was off. I could see her silhouette through the driver's side window, her head leaning against the steering wheel. Her shoulders were shaking. I parked a few spots away and walked over, my work boots echoing softly in the concrete cavern. I tapped gently on the glass. She jumped, her head snapping up. Her eyes were wide, red-rimmed. When she saw it was me, a wave of confusion, then panic, washed over her face. She fumbled with the lock and opened the door. "Malik, what are you doing here? Is Amara okay?" Her voice was hoarse. "Amara's fine," I said softly. My voice was steady, grounded. "Mrs. Henderson is getting her from school." Then, "What is it? Did something happen?" She was trying to pull the mask of the competent executive back on, but her hands were trembling. I didn't answer right away. I just looked at her. I looked past the expensive silk blouse and the diamond stud earrings. I looked into her eyes, and for the first time in a long time, I let myself see the terrified, exhausted woman behind them. I held up my phone. Her voice note was still on the screen. Her face went pale. A truly awful, blood-drained pale that I had never seen on her rich brown skin before. "Oh, God," she whispered, her hand flying to her mouth. "Oh, my God, Malik, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean... That was for Chloe. She couldn't finish. She just stared at me, her expression a mixture of profound shame and utter terror. She looked like a cornered animal. I didn't say anything about the promotion, about Mr. Sterling, about her feeling like a ghost. The reasons didn't matter as much as the pain itself. All of that could wait. I reached out, my calloused hand covering her trembling one. "Naomi," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "Come home. Just come home." It was the only thing I could think to offer, an anchor, a safe harbor that wasn't empty. Her composure finally broke. A single tear escaped and traced a path down her cheek. She nodded, unable to speak. She slid over to the passenger seat, and I got in and drove us away from the cold, concrete tomb where she'd been hiding her broken heart. The drive home was silent. Not the strained, empty silence we'd become accustomed to, but a heavy, fragile silence filled with everything that had been left unsaid for years. The first few hours back at the house were excruciatingly awkward. Naomi sat on the edge of the sofa, stiff and formal, as if she were a guest. I made her a cup of ginger tea the way her mother used to, and set it on the coffee table. Her hands were still trembling as she picked it up. She wouldn't meet my eyes. The shame was radiating off her in waves. Mrs. Henderson brought Amara home, and our daughter burst through the door like a miniature hurricane, her backpack bouncing, the colorful beads in her braided hair clicking softly. "Mommy, Daddy, guess what? I was the star polisher today." She launched herself into Naomi's arms. For a moment, holding our daughter, Naomi's posture softened. She hugged Amara tightly, burying her face in the sweet-smelling coils of her hair. It was a reflex, the pure, unconditional love of a mother. But when Amara pulled back, her bright eyes scanning her mother's face with a child's unnerving perception, she tilted her head. "Mommy, why are your eyes wet? Were you watching a sad movie?" Naomi forced a watery smile. "Just a long day, sweet pea. Mommy's just tired." "Oh," Amara said, accepting the adult lie with childhood grace. "Well, you need a hug from Dr. Amara." "Doctor, Amara's hugs make everything better." She wrapped her small arms around Naomi's neck again, and I saw my wife's eyes squeeze shut, another tear escaping. Amara's innocent gesture had done more to comfort her than I ever could. She was the bridge between us, the one who could speak the language of pure affection that Naomi and I had forgotten how to use with each other. That night after Amara was asleep, the silence returned, heavier than before. We sat at the kitchen table, the half-empty teacups between us. The silence was a wall. I knew I had to be the one to take the first brick out. "You're not a ghost, Naomi," I said softly, my voice barely disturbing the quiet. Her head snapped up. Her eyes were filled with a fresh wave of tears. "Malik, I am so sorry," she whispered, her voice thick. "You shouldn't have heard that. It was a moment of weakness. I was just venting." "Was it true?" I asked, not with accusation, but with a genuine, painful curiosity. "What you said, is that how you feel?" She hesitated, twisting the napkin in her lap. Finally, she nodded, a small, jerky movement. "Sometimes," she admitted, her gaze fixed on the table, "I feel like I'm playing a part. At work, I'm the unflappable SVP. I have to be twice as good, twice as tough. I can't show weakness. And then I come home, and I'm so tired of performing that I don't know how to stop. I look at you, and you're so solid, so real. And I feel like a fraud. I feel like I'm failing you and Amara, even though my success is supposed to be for you." "You've never failed us," I said immediately, my voice firm. "Naomi, look at me." She slowly lifted her eyes to mine. "I see you," I said, the words feeling both monumental and completely inadequate. "I see how hard you work. I see the pressure you're under. But maybe I stopped looking for the woman I married, the one who used to get paint on her clothes and laugh from her belly. I saw the armor, and I forgot to ask if you were okay inside of it." A sob escaped her, a raw, wounded sound. "I don't even know who that woman is anymore," she cried, covering her face with her hands. "She's gone." I moved from my chair and knelt in front of her, gently pulling her hands away from her face. I wiped her tears with my thumbs, my rough skin a contrast to her soft, luminous, deep brown skin. "No, she's not," I whispered. "She's just tired. She's been carrying the world. It's time we carried it together." It wasn't a solution. It wasn't a magic fix, but it was a start. It was the first honest conversation we'd had in years. That night, for the first time in a long time, she fell asleep with her head on my shoulder, her body finally fully at rest. A single brick had been removed from the wall between us. The weekend that followed felt like navigating a new country without a map. The old routines felt hollow, the silences charged with unspoken meaning. We were both trying, both clumsy. On Saturday morning, Naomi insisted on making pancakes. It was a gesture, an attempt to step back into the domestic world she felt so disconnected from. She pulled out the flour and eggs, her movements hesitant. She, who could command a boardroom of intimidating executives, looked utterly lost in our own kitchen. Amara sat at the table, her legs swinging, providing a running commentary. "Mommy, that's too much flour. Daddy says you have to make a little mountain and then a volcano for the eggs." Naomi's smile was tight. "Well, Mommy's trying a new way." The first batch was a disaster. She'd forgotten the baking powder, and they were flat, rubbery discs. The second batch, she got distracted by a work email that buzzed on her phone, and the pancakes burned, filling the kitchen with acrid smoke. She stared at the blackened skillet, her shoulders slumping in defeat. It was such a small thing, a burnt pancake, but in that moment, it represented every one of her perceived failings as a wife and mother. "I can't even do this right," she whispered, her voice trembling. Before I could say a word, Amara piped up, her voice full of 7-year-old wisdom. "It's okay, Mommy. Daddy burns stuff sometimes too. One time he made the toast all black, and we pretended we were eating charcoal from a dragon's mouth." The image was so absurd, so purely Amara, that a small, genuine laugh escaped Naomi's lips. It was a rusty sound, one I hadn't heard in ages. I caught her eye, and a real smile, a flicker of the old Naomi, touched my own face. "Dragon toast, huh?" I said, turning off the smoking stove. "I think your daughter is revealing my culinary secrets." The tension broke. The ridiculousness of the situation, the simple, honest love in Amara's attempt to make her mother feel better, it was a balm. We threw out the burnt pancakes, opened the windows to air out the smoke, and I made a batch of my foolproof, fluffy pancakes while Naomi sat with Amara at the table, actually present, her phone left on the counter. She didn't check it once. As we ate, Naomi reached across the table and put her hand over mine. It was a small gesture, but it felt enormous. A silent thank you. A silent promise. Later that afternoon, I was in the workshop, putting the finishing touches on the rocking chair. It was for a new mother in the neighborhood, a commission I'd taken on the side. The wood glowed under my hands. Naomi appeared at the doorway, holding 2 mugs of coffee. She had changed out of her usual tailored slacks and into a soft, worn sweatshirt, one of mine. She stood there for a moment, just watching me work. Her gaze was soft, appreciative. "I'd forgotten," she said quietly. "Forgotten what?" "How beautiful it is to watch you work," she said, walking further into the space. She ran a hand over a smooth, finished piece of cherry wood. "You have magic in your hands, Malik. You always have." She looked around the workshop, at the half-finished projects, the sketches pinned to the wall. "You gave all this up." It wasn't an accusation. It was a statement of fact, tinged with a deep, newfound sadness. "I didn't give it up," I corrected gently. "I paused it for us, for Amara. It was a choice, Naomi, one I'd make again." "But you miss it," she said, her eyes searching mine. "Your business, Heirloom Hands. I loved that name." I sighed, setting down my sanding block. "Yeah," I admitted. "I miss it. But I wouldn't trade what we have. I wouldn't trade being there for Amara." "You shouldn't have to trade," she said, her voice fierce. "It shouldn't be one or the other. We're a team. I forgot how to be a teammate. I've been playing a solo game for so long." She looked at the rocking chair. "You should reopen the business, Malik. For real this time. We'll figure it out. Together." It was the first time she had mentioned a "we" that felt like a true partnership, not just a shared household. The idea bloomed in my chest, a fragile, hopeful thing. It wasn't just about the business. It was about her seeing me, my dreams, my sacrifices, and wanting to honor them. It was about her wanting to build something with me again, not just alongside me. That night, as we tucked Amara into bed, our daughter held up a drawing she had made that afternoon in the workshop. It was a picture of 3 stick figures under a bright yellow sun. They were all holding hands. "This is our family," she announced proudly. Naomi's smile was tender. "It's beautiful, sweetie. Who is everyone?" Amara pointed with a small finger. "That's Daddy. He's the tallest, and he has brown skin. And that's me." She pointed to the smallest figure, who had a cloud of scribbled coils for hair and beads on her braids. I'm a little black girl, and I'm in the middle. And that's you, Mommy. She pointed to the last figure. You have pretty natural hair and brown skin, and you're smiling a real smile, not your work smile. Naomi's breath caught in her throat. My own heart clenched. From the mouth of babes, Amara, in her innocent, perfect way, had just articulated everything. She saw us. She saw our race, our family, our truth. She saw the difference between Naomi's real smile and her fake one. Naomi took the drawing, her fingers tracing the waxy crayon lines. "My real smile," she whispered. She looked up at me, her eyes shimmering with tears, but this time, they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of profound, overwhelming love. She leaned over and kissed Amara's forehead. "Thank you, baby girl. It's the most beautiful drawing I've ever seen." After Amara was asleep, Naomi held the drawing in her hands, sitting on the edge of our bed. She was crying silently, the tears tracking paths of light on her dark skin. I sat beside her and put my arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. She leaned into me, resting her head against my chest, and cried out all the exhaustion, all the loneliness, all the grief for the parts of herself she thought she had lost. I just held her. I didn't offer solutions or platitudes, I just held her, letting her know she wasn't alone. It was the first act of service, the first true kindness she had been able to fully receive in years. In the quiet of our bedroom, with a child's drawing of a brown-skinned family as our witness, the walls between us finally crumbled into dust. The following week was different. A fragile peace had settled over our home. The mornings felt less frantic, the evenings less silent. Naomi started leaving work at 6, a revolutionary act for her. We ate dinner together every night. We talked. Really talked. She told me about the microaggressions at work, the constant pressure to be perfect. I told her about my dreams for the workshop, the designs I had sketched out in old notebooks. We were rediscovering each other, like archaeologists carefully brushing the dust off a precious, forgotten artifact. But the outside world, her world, hadn't changed. It was waiting to reclaim her. The call came on a Thursday evening. We were in the backyard, a small patch of green where I was teaching Amara how to plant tomatoes. Naomi's phone rang with the specific, urgent tone she reserved for her boss, Mr. Sterling. Her entire body tensed. The easy smile she'd been wearing vanished. She walked a few feet away to take the call, her back to us. I couldn't hear Sterling's words, but I could see their effect on Naomi. I watched her shoulders straighten, her posture shifting back into the rigid, defensive stance of the SVP. She was putting the armor back on, piece by piece. Amara, oblivious, held up a fistful of dirt. "Daddy, look, a wiggly worm," I smiled, my attention split. "That's a good one, sweet pea. He's helping our garden." Naomi ended the call and walked back towards us, her face a mask of controlled neutrality. But I could see the turmoil in her eyes. I had learned to look now. "What was that?" I asked gently. She took a deep breath. "That was Mr. Sterling. There's an opportunity, a big one. They're restructuring the Asia-Pacific division. They want me to head it up. From Singapore." The words hung in the warm evening air. Singapore. It was on the other side of the planet. "For how long?" I asked, my voice carefully level. "It's a permanent post," she said, avoiding my eyes. "It's the promotion I've been working towards for 10 years. It's everything." Everything she thought she wanted, I thought. The old Naomi would have been packing her bags already. She would have seen it as the ultimate validation, the final prize for all her sacrifices. But the woman standing in front of me was different. She was torn. "It would mean a lot of money, Malik," she said, as if trying to convince herself. "We could buy a bigger house. You could build the workshop of your dreams. Amara could go to the best international school. She was listing the logical benefits, the architecture of a successful life. But her heart wasn't in it. Amara ran up to her, tugging on her hand. "Mommy, come see the worm family. There's a daddy worm and a baby worm." Naomi looked down at our daughter's bright, upturned face, her hand covered in rich, dark soil. Then she looked at me, standing in our small, imperfect garden, with dirt on my knees and a peace in my heart she was just beginning to find for herself. She saw the life that was real, tangible, and right here, and she saw the gleaming, empty promise of a bigger, better cage halfway around the world. "What do you think?" she whispered, her question directed only at me. I knew this was her test. Not a test for me, but for herself. She needed to make this choice. I wouldn't make it for her. I walked over and took her hand, the one not being held by Amara. I squeezed it gently. "I think," I said, looking directly into her eyes, "that we will be okay no matter what you decide. I think you are the strongest, most brilliant woman I have ever known. And I think you already know the answer." I let go of her hand and went back to the tomato plants with Amara. I was giving her the space to choose, showing her that my love wasn't conditional on her decision. She could choose Singapore and I would find a way to make it work. Or she could choose us, but the choice had to be hers. She stood there for a long time watching us, her family, as the sun set, casting long shadows across our little patch of earth. I didn't sleep well that night. I lay awake, listening to the rhythm of Naomi's breathing, wondering what was going through her mind. Was she picturing boardrooms in Singapore? Or was she picturing pancake mornings and garden worms? I had told her I would be okay with either choice, and I meant it. But a part of me, the part that had just gotten his wife back, was terrified. The next morning, she was up before me. I came downstairs to find her sitting at the kitchen table, her laptop open. She was dressed in one of her power suits, her hair pulled back in its immaculate professional style. My heart sank. It was the armor. She was preparing for battle. She looked up as I entered, and her face was calm, resolute. It was a look I recognized. It was the look she got before a major presentation, before a difficult negotiation. It was her game face. But there was something different in her eyes. Not anxiety, not fear, just quiet certainty. "I have a call with Sterling in 10 minutes, she said. I just nodded, pouring myself a cup of coffee. I leaned against the counter, giving her space, but letting her know I was there. A silent sentinel. She took a deep, steadying breath and initiated the video call. Mr. Sterling's face appeared on the screen, a portrait of smug, corporate power. "Naomi," he boomed. "Good. I trust you've had time to consider our generous offer. Singapore is waiting." "I have, Robert," Naomi said, her voice clear and strong. There was no tremor, no hesitation, and I appreciate the board's confidence in me. "Excellent," he said, smiling. "My assistant will be in touch with the relocation package details. We'll need you on a plane by the end of the month." "That won't be necessary," Naomi said calmly. Sterling's smile faltered. "I'm sorry?" "I'm declining the offer," she said. The words fell into the quiet kitchen with the weight of destiny. I held my breath. Sterling looked genuinely stunned. "You're declining? Naomi, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. This is the global EVP position. It's what we've been grooming you for." "I know what it is," Naomi replied, her gaze unwavering. "And a year ago, I would have accepted without a second thought. But things have changed. My priorities have changed." "Is this about money?" he pressed, a condescending edge to his voice. "We can discuss compensation." "It has nothing to do with money." She cut him off, her voice dropping, gaining a new kind of power. a power that didn't come from a title or a salary. For the past 10 years, I have given this company my mind, my talent, and my time. I have sacrificed evenings with my family. I have missed school plays, and I have sat silently while others took credit for my work, all in pursuit of the next rung on the ladder. She leaned forward slightly. You talked about grooming me for this position. What you groomed me for was to accept being undervalued. What you groomed me for was to believe my worth was tied to my title. But I was worthy long before I walked into this company. And my daughter's childhood is more valuable than any stock option. My husband's dreams are more important than your quarterly projections. And my own peace of mind, that is non-negotiable. She sat back, her statement complete. It wasn't an angry tirade. It was a declaration of independence, a quiet, unshakable reclamation of her own soul. Sterling was speechless, his mouth opening and closing silently. He had no protocol for this. He didn't know how to handle a woman who refused to play the game anymore. So thank you for the offer, Robert, Naomi concluded, a small, genuine smile on her face. But I have a family to build, and I have a life to live, and I plan on doing both right here. Before he could respond, she ended the call. The screen went blank. She closed the laptop with a soft, final click. She had done it. She had walked away. Not from her ambition, but from a version of success that was costing her everything. She looked over at me, her eyes shining. She looked terrified and exhilarated and more beautiful than I had ever seen her. I crossed the kitchen in 2 strides and pulled her out of her chair and into my arms. I held her tight, burying my face in her hair. I couldn't speak. I didn't need to. My embrace said everything. I'm so proud of you, I finally managed to whisper into her ear. She held on to me, her body trembling with the adrenaline of her decision. I chose us, Malik, she whispered back. I choose us. In the weeks that followed, it was like our house could finally breathe again. The oppressive weight of Naomi's job had lifted. She resigned the next day, giving a month's notice. She walked away from the glass tower with her head held high, not as a failure, but as someone who had finally defined success on her own terms. We fell into a new rhythm, one that was slower, more intentional. We took Amara to the park. We cooked dinner together, laughing at our mistakes. We sat on the porch swing in the evenings, watching the fireflies, talking about everything and nothing. Naomi started painting again, setting up an easel in the sunlit corner of our living room. Her first painting was a portrait of Amara in the garden, her face streaked with dirt, a bright red tomato in her hand. Her real smile. One sunny Saturday, a month after she'd left her job, we were all in the workshop. I was sketching out plans for a new dining table, the first official commission for the reopened heirloom hands. Naomi was sanding a small piece of scrap wood, learning the feel of it. Amara was at her little table, meticulously drawing. I'm finished, Amara announced, holding up her latest masterpiece. We both went over to look. It was another family portrait, but this one was different. We were in the workshop. The stick figure me was holding a saw. The stick figure Naomi was holding a paintbrush, and Amara was in the middle, holding both of our hands. Above our heads, she had drawn a crooked, rambling house with a big heart coming out of the chimney. It's our home, she explained, and we're all here, together. Naomi knelt, pulling Amara into a hug. Yes, we are, baby girl, she said, her voice thick with emotion. We're all here. She looked up at me over Amara's shoulder, her eyes full of a love that was calm, deep, and true. It was a love forged not in the easy times, but in the fires of honesty and forgiveness. A love that had been broken open and rebuilt, stronger and more beautiful than before. Later that evening, after Amara was asleep, Naomi found me on the porch swing. She was holding something in her hand. She sat down close beside me, our shoulders touching. The night was warm, filled with the sound of crickets. "I was wrong," she said softly. "About what?" "In the voice note," she said, the memory no longer carrying a sting of shame, but the quiet echo of a lesson learned. "I said you didn't see me. But the truth is, I wasn't letting myself be seen. I was hiding. You were always waiting for me right here. I just had to be brave enough to come home." She opened her hand. In her palm lay a simple, elegant silver key. "What's this for?" I asked. "It's for your new workshop," she said. "I found a space for lease downtown, a storefront, with a big window so everyone can see your beautiful work. I use some of my severance. It's an investment. In you. In us." I stared at the key, then at her face, luminous in the soft porch light. It wasn't just about the money or the space. It was the ultimate gesture. She was pouring her resources, her belief, into my dream, just as I had done for her for all those years. It was a partnership, made real and tangible. I took the key, my fingers closing around hers. "Naomi," I started, but my voice was thick. "Shh," she whispered, leaning her head on my shoulder. "It's our turn now." We sat there for a long time in the warm North Carolina night, the key a cool weight of promise in my hand. We didn't need grand speeches or dramatic declarations. We had found our way back, not to who we used to be, but to who we were always meant to become. Two people, a man who builds with his hands, and a woman who paints with her heart, building a life together. It turned out that love wasn't about grand gestures or career achievements. It was about the quiet, steady rhythm of a shared life. It was about making pancakes on a Saturday morning, planting tomatoes in a small garden, and having the courage to be seen, truly seen, in all your glorious imperfection. That 40-second voice note hadn't been the end of our marriage. It had been the beginning. It was the crack that let the light in, showing us the way back home to each other. And for the first time in years, we were both finally home.